Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing the Radeon RX 9060 XT in The Last of Us Part 1 with the new FSR 4 update, or FSR 3.1, which you can replace with FSR 4. Now, this one is the XFX Pro Gaming Graphics Swift Class 9060 XT, 16GB GPU, of course, that's the one you should get. And as usual, we're running it with the latest AMD drivers. You can see all of its specs here in Tech Power-Up's GPU Z. Again, it has 16GB of VRAM, and over on the left I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 7 9800X 3D and 32GB of RAM, which is a bit overkill for a 9060 XT, but you should get the same FPS if you pair it with like a Ryzen 5 7600. Let's get into it, shall we? Also, if you want to enable FSR 4 in all of the games that support it, you want to go to AMD Software, Gaming, Graphics, and toggle this right here. And then in most games that support FSR 3.1, that version will be replaced with FSR 4, which is the case here in The Last of Us. Alright, we're inside of the game now, guys. We have it at 1080p resolution to start this off. I'm also going to test 1440p and 4K. And right now I'm using the anti-aliasing set to AMD FSR 4 native AA. I want to check this out first at native resolution, then we're going to test like quality FSR as well. And over here I am using the Ultra Graphics preset. And here we have it. At 1080p resolution in this game, we're getting 80 to 90 frames per second, which is actually pretty good. Can I turn on the flashlight? Yeah, there we go. That usually drops your FPS by like 2 frames per second or so. But it makes it more intensive, so I want that enabled. Let's go, Ellie, please get out of the way. Okay, thank you very much. Let's climb up here. We're going to the Capitol building area, do the benchmark run inside, kill some enemies as well, which is always very intensive. And here we are. Looking in this direction, no problems. Also, buttery smooth frame time graph. There isn't a single stutter to be seen there. That's awesome. It's a really smooth experience here. And FSR 4 native AA here on this native 1080p monitor that I'm using right now, it actually does look pretty good, but I have noticed some issues with it, okay? I'm not sure if it's because of FSR 4 itself. I'm gonna have to disable it to check it out, but around Joel's arm, you can see that there's some pixelation there. If I zoom in, you can definitely notice that. I think it's the screen space reflections. Also over here, it's really noticeable. Yeah, the screen space reflections just get completely wrecked here with FSR 4, because over here, in these grassy areas, for example, where FSR and DLSS and all of the upscalers usually struggle a little bit more, it actually looks really good and it doesn't have any artifacting or pixelation whatsoever. You aren't going to spend a lot of time in water in this game. There's a couple of levels that do have water, but it looks weird if you're looking at below Joel's arms. So if you just ignore that, everything else in the picture is going to be fantastic. So no problems there. 69 1% load for a second there. Now back to 70 and 69 now again. Okay, looking in this direction, 70s. Yeah, this is pretty good, guys. It's going to stay above 60 FPS all of the time. I'm going to skip the cinematics so I don't spoil things. Anyway, let's start counting FPS over here in this area. This is going to get pretty intensive in just a little bit, more so than outside with all of the vegetations and so on. 90s. Dropping into the 80s sometimes. Yeah, over here especially it drops like crazy to 69 once again. Not a problem though, it still keeps it well above 60 FPS the entire time, so no problems. With the 9060 XT, it's doing a good job here. VRAM is also totally under control, and you can actually see that it's using or allocating more than 10 gigabytes right now. So the 8GB model would actually be struggling a little bit and introducing a couple of stutters here and there probably. The VRAM usage itself is also above 9 gigabytes, so yeah, I actually didn't expect it to be so high in terms of VRAM usage and allocation here in this game, but I guess yeah, I remember it struggling quite a bit on 8GB cards back when it launched. So, yeah, this game is a VRAM hungry bastard. Alright? It's not a bastard. The game is great. The game is really, really good. Oh, look at this. Once again, the pixelation below Joel. Yeah, I don't like that too much. Also dropping into the mid-60s in this scenario here. Come on, I want to kill these bastards. Let's go. These are all bobs, of course. We don't like bobs. Come on. This is definitely super playable, but let me check the default AA over here. That's going to be TAA, guys, and TAA, yeah, looks way softer than FSR 4 native AA here at 1080p. Holy crap. That's a night and day difference, guys. What the hell? Definitely use FSR 4 native AA. And it also has that pixelation issue with the screen space reflections below Joel's arms. So, yeah, that's not FSR 4's fault. It's just the game itself, the implementation of the temporal anti-aliasing is really bad in this one, apparently, at least when it comes to water. Out here, it's fine, or in here, actually, but it's still way too soft compared to what we saw. I'm using a 27-inch 1080p monitor right now, and it is really soft. In terms of FPS, we're getting 70... Ellie, please stand still. 75 FPS with Ellie over there. And with FSR 4 native AA, we get down into the 71 frames per second. So it sharpens up the image. It looks way better. It's like DLAA basically at this point. It does an amazing job. But it also is intensive in performance. So it will drop your FPS by like 5 to 10%, depending on the cases, or depending on where you are. But overall, really good experience, always above 60 FPS. This area right here is the second most intensive area in the entire game, alright? The most intensive area is a little bit further ahead, and it drops by like 1 or 2 more FPS than here. So you're still going to be completely fine with this GPU at 1080p resolution and ultra settings. Now, we're back here at the start, and I want to check it out now with some FSR quality at 1080p resolution, okay? So I'm gonna go here, enable the scaling mode on FSR, quality over there, it isn't anything above quality. Actually, I wish they would make an ultra quality mode for 1080p users, 75% resolution scale, you know, instead of 67% resolution scale. This renders the game at 720p resolution, and then it upscales it to 1080p, and I feel like 75%, especially at 1080p resolution, would be a bit better. But hey, guys, quality FSR, I think, still is looking a bit sharper than TAA. So that is an awesome addition to the game. All right, let's start counting our FPS here. FSR 4 is really good, guys. Man, every time I test FSR 4, which is very few times, actually, because not a lot of games support it, unfortunately, but every time I test this, I'm amazed because I'm expecting worse quality graphics because, you know, FSR 2 and FSR 3, FSR 3.1 were pretty meh. There were a few titles where it looked really good, but in most of them they were super pixelated and had tons of issues. But this FSR 4 makes huge leaps, okay? It makes it look super close to the DLSS on the NVIDIA side of things. So the upscaling, oh boy, aside from that, but again, the water is pixelated just because it is pixelated in the game itself, unfortunately. But this makes these 90 series or 9000 series GPUs pretty comparable in terms of the upscaling performance and quality to the NVIDIA stuff, and that was a major win previously for NVIDIA. I wish developers took a little bit more time optimizing their FSR implementations, you know, because it makes a huge difference. Anyways, let's start counting our FPS here in this section of the game. We're in the 100s. Obviously, it starts very good, but then it drops over in this area. And yeah, a little stutter here and there. Sometimes it happens in these transitions, you know, when it's loading things in the background, next section of the map. But it's not really game breaking. They're not like huge stutters, you know. And now instead of dropping to like 69 FPS here or 67, whatever it was, we're dropping into the mid 80s. So massive improvement in terms of performance. I can tell the difference between native resolution and FSR quality here. But it's not a huge difference. It's a little bit softer right now, but it still looks sharp. It's a little bit more shimmery as well in some areas, but it's not pixelated like earlier implementations of FSR. So it's really good here, in my opinion. Again, making it close to the DLSS stuff, which is awesome. All right. Let's go. Hello, buddy. Goodbye, Bob. It's one of the Bobs, of course. These guys are all Bobs, I think. Or maybe the one who... it's this one. It's definitely this one. Come on, come on, come on! Oh my god, I hate the controls. Honestly, guys, you're better off playing this game with a controller and aim assist because it's what it's made for. Anyway, this is good, guys. If you have like a 27-inch monitor, I would stick to the native AA stuff. If you have a 24-inch, I think it will still look really good with FSR quality here. So it's pretty impressive. But I kind of want to check it out as well with the FSR performance. Because this is going to be really low in resolution, around 540p, as you can see there. So half res of 1080p internally, and then it upscales it to the 1080p resolution. And yeah, this is where we can start seeing a lot of issues, of course, but still, it looks really good. It doesn't look anywhere near a 540p resolution image. In fact, I think this looks better than a 720p native image. So, again, huge improvement in the upscaler here with FSR 4, guys. This is amazing. So here we go now, we're at 2560 by 1440 resolution native, okay, with FSR 4 native AA, FPS are dropping by a lot here in the menu, and on the graphics settings, I'm still using the ultra settings preset, although I think high would be a little bit more adequate. Let's find out. Okay. That's actually really good. So I just turned on the flashlight and we went from 64 to 62 frames per second. Again, this makes it a little bit more intensive. Let's start counting our frames here, and it's still in the 60s. On ultra settings, I don't think it's gonna get 60 plus 100% of the time, you know. Hello there, Razer. Why are you ruining my benchmark run? I just started charging my mouse because it was low on battery, and yeah, Razer thought it was more important than showing you the benchmark. Anyway, Razer thinks it's more important than installing Windows itself. Because when you install Windows and you have this mouse attached to it, before the Windows installation starts, you get the pop-up from Razer. It's insane. Anyway, let's go. It's starting to drop into the 50s. This game is really, really demanding, though, on these graphics settings, ultra settings, and 1440p resolution as well. So I'm not really surprised to see this. When it came out, it was dropping into these FPS with, I think, the RTX 4070. And the 4070 was a beast when this game released. But yeah, these FPS make me think that high settings are more adequate for 1440p native resolution. But the thing is, FSR 4 was so good as an upscaler on quality at 1080p that I think it's going to be super similar, there we go, on quality at 1440p to the native stuff, if that makes sense. Because the LSS in some titles is very similar on quality to the native 1440p resolution. And here we go. Now we're above 60 FPS, coming from like 50s, mid-50s here, looking in this direction. I can definitely see a bit more noise in the water, so it just emphasizes the noise in the water. But everywhere else, even on vegetation and so on, once again, it's still really good looking. Maybe a little bit more shimmery here and there. But yeah, the FSR 4 implementation is really nice, guys. And this game is not known to have very good upscaling, even with the LSS, but FSR 4 is doing great. Anyway, let's keep on going here, start counting our FPS again, and this is 960p resolution internally, but it's looking quite a bit better than even 1080p native resolution, guys. That's why I'm going to focus on 1440p performance with or without FSR, or high settings mostly, in games in the full review of this card. Alright, I think it does pretty well at 1440p resolution. So that's what I'm gonna test. Maybe I will also do a 1080p resolution video later on if that video performs well at 1440p. You guys let me know if you want to see that as well. Oh, I forgot to turn on the flashlight, but it doesn't really matter. Once again, like this works extremely well here with FSR quality on ultra settings. So if you want to keep that ultra settings preset, go ahead. It's gonna work flawlessly. And the GPU is also boosting quite high. Look at that. 3.2 gigahertz on the clock speeds. That's insane, dude. Also, power consumption-wise, I gotta mention, this is pretty sweet. But we'll talk all about that in the full review, of course. Let's go. I'm also posting this before I make that full review video, because I just had the GPU installed and I heard that the FSR 4 update came to this game and I wanted to check it out. So, yeah. A lot of you were also asking for 9060 XT videos, so here we go, starting with this one. Anyway, it doesn't drop with the FSR on quality, so this is definitely a go. What should we do next? Maybe performance? I mean, there's no need, obviously, to play on performance DLSS or the FSR, actually, but wow. This is crazy. Once again, it's really close to what DLSS offers. Performance DLSS 4 at 1440p resolution is usually not amazing looking, of course. You can definitely notice the differences, but it is still seeable. It is still enjoyable on such a low resolution. It's 720p being upscaled to 1440p, so it's crazy. But yeah, it still looks really good. I'm gonna stand still for a second. Look at that. It's awesome. Performance FSR 3 or FSR 2 would just be completely wrecked, especially when you do this. But this isn't. But alright guys, let's do the high settings preset this time around, okay? This is it. This is probably going to be a little bit more adequate once again. I'm going to go back to the native AA over here. There we go. Okay, this is a really weird menu actually. I feel like it should all be in a single scaling mode option, you know? You select FSR 4 and then the quality here. Yeah, you should have native AA, but no, you actually got to disable this and go to the anti-aliasing mode and do FSR. I guess it's more accurate this way because this is AA now. Also, I just restarted the game as well, just to make sure that it fully applies on high settings. And here we go. Yeah, I think it's still really intensive, guys. But I don't think it's going to drop from 60 FPS this time around here in the capital area, at least. In this game, there isn't really that big of a difference, so feel free to just utilize high settings, native resolution. And as you can see, instead of dropping to 52 or 55 frames over here in this area, it drops to 64, 65. So that means that it might actually still dip down into the 50s in that little scenario looking at vegetation inside, but most of the time, it's going to be 60 plus. You can just lock it at 60 if you want to save a little bit of power, for example. Anyway, let's go. This is the area that I was telling you about. Lots of vegetation here, and it doesn't even drop here. So, yeah, if it doesn't drop here, I think it's safe to say that it won't drop anywhere in the game. All right, really good performance here at 1440p high settings. And it's definitely how I would play this game, you know? Sure, there's nothing wrong with playing at 1440p with quality FSR. It looked good still. But this just looks a little bit cleaner. And I prefer it. Anyway, over here, 60s. 61 frames per second, so that's the most that it dropped so far. Alright, let's go kill this guy over here on the right. Come on, dude! Stop that! Stop that! God, you guys are so annoying! Okay, there we go. Oh boy. Oh boy. Sometimes this goes very well, other times it doesn't. Okay, dropping into the 50s, by the way. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this area is actually the most intensive one of the entire benchmark run, apparently. There we go, finally. But yeah, it dips down into the 50s sometimes. I mean, it's not a problem to me. It's a single-player title. It's only like 58 minimum, so definitely livable with, right? But I guess if you want 60 plus 100% of the time without the possibility of it even dropping from 60 or getting close to 60 FPS, quality DLSS or quality FSR, it looks so good that I keep calling it DLSS these days. Anyway, quality FSR 4 will give you that, obviously. It's a lot more stable as well and higher refresh rate than it was on ultra settings. Getting like 75 plus FPS 100% of the time this time around, going up into like the 100s inside. And now you can start feeling that higher refresh rate experience. If that's important to you, go ahead and do that. There is also some frame generation here to improve your experience. I guess I'll try it by the end of the video at the 3 resolutions. But first, let's go back to native AA and play at 4K resolution high settings. 30s. It looks really crispy though with FSR 4 native AA. So definitely way better. Even at 4K resolution, you can tell the difference between TAA and FSR native AA. I wonder how the 9070 XT would perform in this game at 4K resolution, because this is actually not too bad for a 9060 XT kind of performance or tier of performance, you know. This is similar to a 4060 Ti 16GB GPU, little tad bit slower than the 5060 Ti 16GB GPU, so it's definitely middle of the range or lower end of the range, I guess, if you count 5060 to 5090, you know. Yeah, it's not dropping from 30 FPS. I wouldn't play at native, obviously, when FSR 4 is here, and it does a great job at 4K resolution, that is. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do right away. Let's do FSR 4 on quality. Yes, I want to apply that. Here we go. We went from 30s to 50s. And once again, it's just the water, dude. The water is so weird, because everywhere else, it's still really good looking. A tad bit over-sharpened, but I guess you can adjust it. I'm not sure in this game. But yeah, it's a tad bit over-sharpened, but not by a lot. But the water, I instantly can tell that there is a little bit more added noise to the water. Is it the deal breaker? No, definitely not. It's fine. Let's see it with the performance FSR 4 over here. This renders the game at 1080p resolution, and then it upscales it to 4K. And, wow, okay, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is what I love to see. A great implementation of upscaling that can bring a lot of detail on a 4K screen, even though it's not 4K resolution right now natively. But it's definitely better than like 1440p native resolution right now. The noise on the water is very similar anyways to the quality FSR. So no problems there. Yeah, there's less shimmering here with performance FSR than there was at native 1080p. Yet this is still 1080p internally, but it's upscaling to 4K. And again, like FSR is now at a point, at least with FSR 4 and the few implementations of it that there are in games, unfortunately. But it's now at the point where a 4K screen using performance FSR looks better than a 1440p screen using native AA. So this makes the 9060 XT a capable GPU for 4K gaming. Well, 4K gaming with FSR. But again, there aren't many titles that support FSR 4, unfortunately. So yeah, I really wouldn't grab one of these to play on a 4K monitor unless you are playing only older titles. I think like a 9070 or 9070 XT are definitely worth the extra price to play on a 4K resolution display, or like a 5070 Ti as well. And if you want a cheaper card that's able to play 4K well with upscaling, I think 5060 Ti still gets the win for me, because DLSS is much more widely available. But that card is also quite a bit more expensive than this one, the 16GB model anyways. Yeah, and I'm also talking only about the 16GB models, because 8GB in 2025 totally sucks. Okay, so we're back to 1080p resolution, now utilizing FSR native AA, and frame generation is turned off. All right, but it's still high settings. To start this off at 1080p, I just want to check the high settings. It's a higher refresh rate experience for sure. It's probably going to drop into like the 80s minimum. So it's a little bit better than what it was on Ultra, but we can enable that frame generation. Let's do that. And now... okay. Now we're getting 200. Okay, that is crazy, actually. Oh my god. And it's still good looking. And I'm using my 4K monitor now. I didn't swap monitors again to play 1080p again, but it is still good looking. Still detailed. There we go. Responsive as well. Since the baseline FPS were so high, we don't have any issues in terms of input lag, in my opinion, at least. I mean, I can maybe tell that there's a little bit of added input lag, but it is super minor. Doesn't matter. And... yeah, now it's dropping into the 170s, so really smooth and stable experience for high refresh rate monitors. If you prefer that higher refresh rate experience, this is probably the way to go. Let's do 1440p, and at this resolution, without the frame generation, we were seeing around 60 to 70 FPS most of the time here, so a much lower baseline FPS. and it's still with native AA. In terms of input lag, not too bad actually. I can feel the added input lag. It's not too instant like it was previously. But again, in a single player title like this one, I don't think it would bother me. And now, instead of getting those 60 to 70 frames per second around here, we're getting 110 plus all of the time. So it's really good, really stable. And in terms of the frame generation artifacting, there is maybe a little bit more noise. There's also maybe a little bit of added motion blur, or like perceived motion blur because of the frame generation, I guess. But it's not bad by any means. Still looks sharp enough. And obviously, if you want even more FPS, use quality FSR 4 plus frame generation. And now we're up into the 170s and 160s. Look at that. Oh boy. I think because the game was a tad bit over-sharpened at native AA without frame generation, and frame generation makes it a tad softer, I think it actually ends up complementing the game pretty well with the frame generation in terms of looks. It's getting 150 plus all of the time. It would drop a little bit further in to the benchmark run, further into the level, of course, but we've already went there plenty of times. And this is a good area to benchmark it as well with the frame generation. Anyway, let's go back to FSR native AA, and I'm gonna select 4K resolution now. Oh boy. At this resolution, we get around 30 to 35. And the frame generation here is going to have really high amounts of input lag, I think. Oh boy. And also, it's very jittery as well. Oh. Yeah, it's super jittery right now. What the heck? This looks so bad. It has a lot more artifacting. You can definitely notice the jittering and the duplication of frames as well. It doesn't look natural whatsoever, so it's not as good of an implementation with frame generation as DLSS is, for example. In terms of input lag, however, it's actually pretty good. That's surprising. That's really surprising. I think it's better in terms of input lag than DLSS frame generation, but in terms of visuals, it gets unplayable. It's too jittery once again. Let's try it now with that performance. FSR. Here we go. Plus frame generation. And now it's good. No more jittering right now. Or if there is a little bit of jittering, it's really hard to see. In terms of ghosting, there is quite a bit of it. You can see in Joel's face there. Yeah, there's quite a bit of ghosting. That's because the baseline FPS were really close to 60 frames. So you'll want like 80 FPS baseline to be able to add frame generation on top of it and have a minimal ghosting experience. It's still usable. I mean, with performance FSR, you can actually use frame generation to have that higher refresh rate experience. In terms of input lag, it's basically very similar to what it was before, so no problems there. I have no complaints. It's just that the frame generation isn't too high quality, unfortunately. It has some issues, it has some artifacts, but some people don't even notice those. So if you prefer this experience, go ahead and do that. And with that said, thanks very much for watching this video. I hope it was a good one to watch as well. I'll catch you in the next one very soon. I'm not sure if it's going to be the full-on review of the 9060 XT tomorrow on a Sunday video. I hope I can make it, but it's been really hot, so I couldn't really have an entire week to test it, you know, so I'll do my best. If it doesn't come tomorrow, it will come on Monday, so stay tuned in. Thanks for watching. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.